to the Call the Whole podcast, the MVP of fantasy football podcasts. My name is Uchenna.
And I'm Che. Each episode, we break down what you need to know for fantasy football to help you think strategically for your weekly fantasy lineup decisions.
This week, we'll be looking into the matchups for week 7, sorting out who you should start and who you should sit. Then our featured topic is CMC and the infamous trade this week, what it means for both the Panthers and the 49ers. Without further ado, let's get to their starting sets. So, first we're going to start off with the Titanic tussle in the AFC, Cleveland at Baltimore. It should be a really good game to start off with. And to be fair, it really should be a late night primetime game, but that's for the NFL to sort out. Today we're going to start out with Lamar Jackson, Chubb, and the two tight ends. Those are the people you're going to start. Ultimately, those are the people that are going to get you the most points. Quite recently, the Ravens have been giving up some of the most points at tight ends in the league. So Njoku is going to be someone you're going to put in. Obviously, you're going to put in Mark Andrews. He's been fantastic so far this season. So he's going to be, effectively, he's been their pseudo number one wide receiver. That's someone you're definitely going to put in. Amari Cooper, the borderline wide receiver 2 this week. The Ravens give up second most to wide receivers this season so far. So that's someone you're definitely going to pick in the side. Temper your expectations for the likes of Hunt, because I think although Chubb is going to get the majority of the work, you need to be wary that Hunt could possibly be on the bench, especially in a third down situation. So definitely start him, but obviously temper your expectations. He'll definitely be a flex option. Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, two interesting prospects. We just recently had the news that J.K. Dobbins is going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks with further surgery. So that gives an opportunity for Gus Edwards, who's usually come off the pup list. So that's going to be something that you need to look at. I'd also have a look at Kenyon Drake. We've got him in the 6. Bearing in mind that you're just going to have to temper the expectations simply because it's going to be a committee. So it's going to be a heavy dose of Kenyon Drake plus a couple snaps with Gus Edwards and obviously Justice Hill's kind of sprinkled inside there. So those are the people you're going to start for this fixture. In terms of sits, Donovan Peoples-Jones, as much as the Ravens are very good wide receivers, the Browns are going to, there's only so many times they're going to throw the ball given who they have a quarterback. So I don't think there's going to be enough passing yards to go around. So therefore, that's why I'm saying sit Donovan Peoples-Jones. As for the Ravens, obviously J.K. Dobbins recently been injured. He's a sit. Devil Duvernay, he's a sit this week because I genuinely think it's going to be the Mark Andrews show. And as much as I'm a big personal fan of Bateman, I genuinely think that because he's just come off an injury, he could easily be on the stat count. So I'd sit him this week with a view of possibly starting him next week. On to the game with Tampa Bay. This is going to be what they call an absolute bloodbath. The Panthers have recently had their troubles, both at coach and with players being drafted. So this is somewhere where, in terms of starts of the Panthers, you shouldn't necessarily even consider it. I mean, there is the likes of Deontay Foreman who will likely be, him and Chuba Hubbard will likely be the number one running backs for them. However, it's not going to be great. You should really temper your expectations. So personally, I wouldn't start anyone for the Panthers. On the Buccaneers side, start everyone. Russell Gage, they're the two wide receivers in Godwin and Evans, and obviously you're going to start Tom Brady. Scotty Miller's going to be a good start as well. Him in the slot. The Panthers give up the most, some of the most points in the slot. So therefore, I think he should have a good game. But ultimately, start anyone and everyone from the Bucs. This should be an absolute blowout, and I'm fully expecting them to kind of run riot. And therefore, someone like a Fournette, Rachaad White, especially towards the second half, will be running all day, considering they'll be up early. So again, definitely start them. As mentioned earlier on, for the Panthers, sit everybody. There's no one there. There's no one left to even consider starting. DJ Moore, you could be in deeper leagues. You could possibly kind of play him as a volume play. However, it's with the quarterback, down to the third string quarterback, it's just simply not worth it. But if you're desperate, slot him in. In terms of the sits, Julio Jones and Cameron Brate, the obvious injuries, so you'll definitely sit them. On to the next game. And it's the Falcons at Bengals. The Falcons, I mean, it's an offense where it's quite streamlined offense, which is good for fantasy. However, it's not something that you're going to be particularly enamored with, given who's out. So I think the next person to probably start in this offense it will likely be Carl Pitts. Carl Pitts is someone that who's recently found the end zone last week, so therefore he should have been in good form in terms of being able to kind of get any kind of touchdown value for you. Drake London's another one. He recently last week wasn't particularly great. However, he leads the league or leads the Falcons in terms of target share in their yards this year with 34%. So that's somebody you can definitely put in. In terms of the Bengals, you can start with the Bengals. Definitely have to look at T. Higgins. He managed to log himself a couple of limited practices this week, so definitely look after him in the injury report. But if he's good and ready to go, start him. Burrow, Mixon, obviously Chase, but also another interesting one could be Tyler Boyd. Again, depending on the health of T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd is a nice flex. He gives you that option, given he will likely be the number 2 passing option in the offense. In terms of sitting, you've got to probably sit the quarterback. Tyler Algier is someone that's borderline sit. However, if you're in deeper leagues, you can look to kind of flex him and ask him to kind of, but again, do temporary expectations because this running defense is pretty good for the Bengals. So once again, temper your expectations. In terms of the Bengals, no one particularly you can sit. However, a sleeper and a potential flex would be the tight end Hayden Hurst. He's someone that quite recently found the end zone. No doubt, most seemingly last week where he found the end zone against the Saints. So definitely have a look at him. If you're down at tight end, you need to choose somebody. Hayden Hurst is the guy to do. Now we go to the Lions and Cowboys. This should be an absolute shootout in terms of both ends of the spectrum. But mostly we'll go to the home team, the Cowboys. Start all the Cowboys this week. The Lions give up the most to wide receivers and running backs and quarterbacks. So if you've got Dak's coming back, you should absolutely start him. Michael Gallup's another good start as well. Pollard. And then obviously CD Lamb. But my player of the week this week will be Ezekiel Elliott. As mentioned earlier on, the Lions are 32nd against the run. And quite recently, just before the bye week, Ken Walker Jr. managed to get 2 touchdowns against them. They give up a number of at least 40 points to wide receivers in total this year. So to running backs this year. So that's something you can definitely plug and play. They fully expect to have an excellent game. In terms of the Lions, we just heard this morning here by Adam Schefter that Swift will most likely be out, so he's going to be on the bench. So that's something you don't start. So Jamal Williams will be the number 1 running back this week, so definitely start him. Amon-Ra St. Brown's not really shocking off his ankle injuries by the bye week, so he's definitely somebody you can start. TJ Hawkinson again. The Cowboys kind of give up a few points to the tight end, so he's someone you can definitely slot in. In terms of sits, I mean, Goff you can possibly sit if you're desperate. Again, I fully expect points to be made, so that's someone you could possibly stream in 2 quarterback leagues. Josh Reynolds, again with DJ Chark recently been on IR, he's someone that you could possibly start. However, I would temper my expectations. We've got him in the sit column simply because of that. For the Cowboys, Dalton Schultz coming off a knee injury, he managed to log in a full practice participation. However, with knee injuries, you do have to temper your expectations, so I fully expect them to kind of have him on the stat count. So therefore, I would once again probably sit him with a view to possibly starting him next week. So definitely watch out for that. And I fully expect this game to be an absolute bloodbath in terms of points of fantasy. Moving on to the Giants at Jaguars. The Giants, the 5-1 Giants, been doing really well so far this season. Surprised a lot of people, and I fully expect them to kind of pick up the points in this game. In terms of fantasy, there's a lot of people you can start. Saquon Barkley is going to be a start. Wan'Dale Robinson, the slot wide receiver, the rookie, you can definitely start, given that Kadarius Toney and Galladay are likely to be out this week. Daniel Jones, again, someone that is vulturing touchdowns at the end zone. That's something you can definitely, especially as a Saquon owner, someone that's very, very frustrating. However, he's someone you can start if you need to stream a quarterback this week. He's a solid start against the Jaguars team who gave up these 30 points last week to Matt Ryan. So, again, someone you can definitely start. Another interesting start this week at tight end. Tight end was a little bit of a wasteland this year. It's Daniel Bellinger. He's someone who managed to find the end zone last week against the Ravens in a tight situation. He's another big play kind of player, very touchdown dependent. However, as you mentioned earlier on, tight end is a bit of a wasteland. If you need to stream somebody, he'd be someone I'd definitely look at. Jay, given your Giants, any kind of comments with regards to this?
Yeah, I'm totally down with that Daniel Jones vulturing of touchdowns. I like the way you expressed that because Daniel Jones is a very frustrating quarterback, but we've been playing really well. He's been limiting his turnovers. And also, I would have not started Daniel Jones this week, about 3 weeks ago, knowing what I know about this Jags defense. However, seeing what Matt Ryan did to this Jags defense, particularly when you consider the fact that they're a division rival, and so the Jags see the Colts every year, and they've seen this Colts team, last year and this year in the current format without Jonathan Taylor. It just startled me how well Matt Ryan played, as well as Michael Pittman. And so that gives us a bit of hope as far as the receiving threat, because we know that the Jags will do everything to stop Saquon Barkley, because that's how our offense flows. And he's the complete game changer stroke playmaker of this offense. That he ignites the entire offense. So they will do everything to stop Saquon on the ground, which opens up room for a reliable target. And Wan'Dale Robinson is looking like a reliable target, but Daniel Bellinger has just snuck up on the scene. I've got him on my team, and I've had him. I streamed him weeks ago because I thought, hang on, I saw him against the Cowboys. He did pretty well. And I said, I like the look of this tight end because he's a good safety blanket, and Jones seems to like him a lot. So, I kept him on my team, kept him on ice, so to speak. And his numbers, they didn't jump out of the page as far as targets, but he gets a lot of yards on his targets. So I kept him on my team, and last week he just exploded. And I had him and Knox on my team, and Knox did fairly well, but Bellinger did slightly better. I think he got something like 14 points, fantasy point, which for a tight end in this current climate is a lot. Like, not everyone's going to be a Kelsey, and dare I say, not everyone's going to be a Pitts on his day, because that's the sort of thing Pitts can do, even though he's been a bit of a bust at the moment. So yeah, I think Bellinger's a great pickup, and he's a low-key pickup as well. So you guys try and get him in your leagues, because a lot of people will sleep on him. It's a bit of a fantasy sleeper. So yeah, I think he's going to eat a lot today. He's going to eat a lot today, as will Robinson, I believe. Even if Saquon's numbers go down, which I don't think that they will, because I think right now he's getting to that unplayable CMC sort of level. So yeah, he's a good pickup.
Definitely concur with your points on Daniel Bellinger. I managed to kind of sneak him in another league of mine. I was definitely desperate at tight end, and he's going to be definitely someone that for the fans out there to definitely pick up. He's definitely a sleeper this week. In terms of Jaguars, I would definitely look to start Christian Kirk. He should have a bounce back game. However, temper your expectations, because surprisingly, the Giants are number one against wide receivers this year. So definitely temper your expectations. But because of the volume, you definitely start Kirk. Have a look at Travis Etienne. He's someone that will start this week. He's actually outsnapping James Robinson, and he has been doing so for the last 2 weeks. So he's someone that's potentially going to break out. That's someone you can definitely start. Evan Ingram, the former Giant, again, very frustrating for fantasy. There's someone that had him in a number of leagues last year and in the past. In terms of his metrics, in terms of his body type, he is of the 1 percentile. However, he is someone that could potentially break up to today's games because of how athletic he is, and the fact that last week the Giants weren't able to kind of cover tight ends in the end zone. So that's someone that you can definitely pick up. In terms of flex option, Jay Jones is someone you could definitely kind of pick up and use in the flex. He should be part of this passing offense. But again, temper your expectations, because the Giants are very good against wide receivers. In terms of 2 quarterback leagues, Trevor Lawrence is someone you can definitely plug and play this week. He's someone that has the running ability as well, so you should definitely pick up 15 to 20 points this week if you need it, especially in 2 quarterback leagues. So that's someone we need to consider. In terms of sits for both sides, ultimately the Giants Apart from the before we've given earlier on, I think you can sit every giant this month. It's this week. Sorry, if they're not injured, but they're either injured or they're out of form. So much Kadarius Toney, if you're going to sit, Galladay, you'll definitely sit. In terms of the Jaguars, probably Agnew's the only one that you're probably going to sit, simply because you won't get the volume. And I think in terms of this game, will be a running game for both for the Jaguars if they're going to get anything. So they're going to run to pass. So I don't think Agnew's going to get any kind of volume. So those are the person you're going to sit in this game. On to the next game, the Packers and at the Commanders. The Packers struggling last week, they lost to the Jets, looking for some kind of form, and ultimately this could be a game where they find that. In terms of starts, you're going to start the two running backs. They're the best options for this team. The Commanders give a third most on the ground, so that's someone you definitely need to plug and play in your team. Robert Tonyan, again, he found the end zone last week. He's someone you can use in tight extremes, very similar to Daniel Bellinger, under the radar. There's something you can definitely plug and play, especially at tight end. Aaron Rodgers, definitely something you could put in. My kind of sleeper this week, and it would have been my potential player of the week, if not for Ezekiel Elliott, would have been Allen Lazard. This week, I believe he's going to have an excellent game. The Commanders give up the second most to the wide receiver position. I think Lazard is ultimately the pseudo number one wide receiver at the Packers, so I fully expect him to kind of have a big game, possibly in the range of 1 or 2 touchdowns today. So again, that's something you need to definitely pick up. Romeo Dobbs, another one you can plug and play in. Chrissy Watson's another one, but again, because of the volume in that pass, because of the potential number of mouths to feed an offense, I don't think he'll get the volume required. But again, if you need your desperate deeper needs, he's someone you could possibly plug in as a tight end dependent wide receiver. In terms of the command, it's probably very simple. It's Brian Robinson and only Brian Robinson. The Packers give a lot on the ground. We saw that last week against the Jets. So I think Brian Robinson has the talent, and the Commanders have the O-line to be able to go through with that and make some dents in the Packers' defense. In terms of sits for the Packers, it's definitely going to be Randall Cobb. Unfortunately, he picked up an injury quite recently, so he'll be out for at least 4 to 6 weeks. So he's been totally put on the IR. So he's someone that you can definitely sit. In terms of the Commanders, as mentioned earlier on, you sit everyone on the passing side of the ball, including Terry McLaurin. I appreciate, obviously, he's the number one wide receiver there, but it's likely that Taylor Heineke will be the quarterback for at least 4 games. Carson Wentz is recently put on the IR, so he's going to miss at the very minimum 4 games. So that brings all the passing offense guys for the Commanders down. So that includes Curtis Samuel, that includes Jordan Dodson as well. So again, it's someone that you can't really rely on. Gibson's a difficult one. Again, as I mentioned earlier on, they do go up a lot on the ground. However, in terms of volume, he will only be limited to the flex. The alpha in that running back room is Brian Robinson. And if you saw him last week in the snapshots, you can see why. So there's someone you'll definitely kind of flex, but temper your expectations. The Colts at the Titans, a divisional game, a rough and tumble game at the best of times. And I think it's going to be really good in terms of fantasy points. Starts, it's pretty simple. It's going to be Matt Ryan. The Titans give up the second most to quarterbacks throughout this season, so definitely someone you could definitely put in. Michael Pittman had a good game last week. He's back to what he does best, 11 targets and 8 receptions. He's someone that you can definitely put in. Jonathan Taylor had a 4 weeks of practice, so he's a full go this week, so you're definitely going to be starting him. And a sleeper this week, potentially. I mean, not really a sleeper. I mean, if you've been watching listening to our stuff and following us on Twitter, we've been kind of raving about Alec Pierce. So Alec Pierce is someone you can definitely slot in, plug and play in. He's at the very least a flex option, but I think this week he could have a good game. The Titans do give quite a bit to the wide receivers, so as someone as a second option in this offense, he could definitely start. In terms of the Titans, it's very simple. This is quite a streamlined offense, especially in fantasy, which we like. So I think it's going to be Henry that's going to be the one starting, getting the majority of the snaps, and that wide receiver is going to be Robert Woods. So again, those are the 2 you're going to be putting in. In terms of sits for the Colts, Mo Cox. I mean, unfortunately, is someone that is very tight end dependent, and I think there are better tight end options out there. So I'd probably sit him this week. In the flex for the Colts, Nyheim Hines, very much like Jonathan Taylor, he's someone that could possibly get joy on the ground. However, the Titans are fairly good against running backs. However, it's Jonathan Taylor, it's Nyheim Hines. They should get a steady dose in this matchup. So definitely start him in the flex if you need an option. In terms of sits for the Titans, it's going to be Austin Hooper and Ryan Tannehill. I don't expect the Titans to throw a lot, meaning that I think that caps the expectations for someone like Tannehill. So there are better quarterback streams out there, as you mentioned with Daniel Jones. So that's something that you can really look into and consider, especially when you are looking to stream as quarterbacks. I'd definitely sit him this week. So those are two people that, again, temper your expectations with regards to them. There are better options out there, especially at quarterback, especially at tight end. So, Jay, I don't know if you had any thoughts, especially with the Colts offense.
Yeah, I think I was pleasantly surprised that Michael Pittman is back, because the Jags defense typically are very, very good against wide receivers, or have been very, very good against wide receivers this season, particularly with Jonathan Taylor out as well. I thought they'd key in on Michael Pittman, but Matt Ryan is playing really, really well, and he's another low-key quarterback that you can actually pick up for this week, particularly if you've got a quarterback that's in your starting lineup that's on a bye week or that's injured. I'd go for Matt Ryan, because this Titans defense against the pass is not very good. It's quite low ranking actually. I think it's lower tier as well. I don't even think it's up to mid tier. So, and we know Matt Ryan loves to throw the ball. So yeah, I think your point about Alec Pierce, he's definitely their bona fide wide receiver too. And I think that it's almost getting to the point where if Michael Pittman has below average game, Alec Pierce is going to feast. He's becoming like that because he's also a very big wide receiver at 6'3". So you can see him being used in the red zone as well. So him and Pittman are always live in the red zone, but typically the wide receiver one tends to get a lot of the defensive coverage and the focal point of the defense as far as schemes in the red zone when the field actually shrinks. And so look for Alec Pierce to actually be a red zone threat this game. And it wouldn't shock me if Michael Pittman gets loads of yards, if he is going to get a lot of yards, and then Alec Pierce gets the same amount, if not more, touchdowns, which is what's been happening recently. So Alec Pierce is a low-key flex, and I think he's going to be a decent flex option. I think his ceiling is anywhere between 19 to 25 points, and I think his floor this week is anywhere between 10 to 12 points, which is what you want for a flex player, especially if you've got quite a deep team or deep roster, so to speak.
Definitely, yeah. Alex Pierce is going to have a very good week, and I fully expect this Colts offense to kind of do some damage in terms of fantasy points this week. So anyone of the Colts offense, really stop them. Now we come into the afternoon games. There's some kind of really good games towards the afternoon, and no doubt this is one of them in terms of the Texans at the Raiders. The Texans both coming off a bye week, both of them, so they should be fresh. So in terms of starts for the Texans, it's going to be Dameon Pierce, Cooks, and Nico Collins, another interesting wide receiver. Nico Collins in the last 3 weeks actually out-snapping Brandon Cooks. So ultimately, that's something you need to watch out for. And he's definitely the ultimate number 2 option in that offense. The offense which doesn't necessarily throw as much with Davis Mills. And he's unfortunately, because of that, it's going to be a sit this week for us. However, if you've got Nico Collins and you need a flex option, he's someone you could possibly use. However, it will be a heavy dose of Dameon Pierce against the Raiders, who give up the 4th most against running back. So that's someone you can definitely run on this week. In terms of the Raiders, it's very simple. It's the main quartet, main trio, in fact. It looks like Darren Ward is not going to be available this week, so he's out. So he was definitely going to be a sit. However, Foster Moreau is someone you can definitely plug and play in that system. Ultimately, Josh Jacobs having a hell of a year this year. He's someone you could definitely plug and play. Overall, I'm going to make a big prediction here. He'll be the number 1 running back in terms of points this week in fantasy. So I fully expect him to work and run all over the Houstons, who are 31st against the run this week. Derek Carr, someone you can plug in. And depending on the situation and his mental state, definitely Devontae Adams is someone that's going to absolutely feast today. That's a feast against the Texans. I fully expect him to kind of get back to form. And to be fair, I expect the Raiders to get back to form. They're going to heartbreaking loss 2 weeks ago against the Chiefs. So those are the four that you can definitely start. In terms of sits, as mentioned earlier on, for the Texans, Davis Mills is someone you can definitely sit. For the Raiders, Matt Collins, as much as he gets targets in the end zone, you're basically waiting for targets in the end zone. And it's someone that's not necessarily reliable, especially in fantasy. So that's someone you probably need to sit. Depending on the situation with Waller, which we just said he's out, Hunter Renfrow is definitely an option whereby you can start with the flex. He should get more snaps, more targets, given the fact that Waller is out. So that's someone you can definitely add into your team. Now we come to the Jets at Broncos. The Jets coming off a great win at the Packers, and they should kind of follow up with a solid performance against the Broncos. In terms of starts, really and truly, the Jets have been putrid in terms of the past this year. Zach Wilson needs to kind of, if any Jets fan that's kind of listening and been watching them, someone that needs to kind of put his finger out and try and keep his wide receivers happy this week, especially with what Elijah Moore has said this week in terms of wanting to trade. He's someone that definitely needs to try and keep his wide receivers happy. However, in terms of starts, it's going to be the MVP this week. The rookie looking like the rookie of the year this week in terms of Bryce Hall. He should run all over the Broncos. The Broncos give up the fifth most to running backs, and he should absolutely feast on these Broncos. So again, he's someone you can most definitely start. In terms of the Broncos starting, Russell Wilson has actually been ruled out. It was ruled out last night, and he'll be out for at least this game. So that brings the passing offense all the way down, and it will be just Courtland Sutton, who I think will be the guy you can start. In terms of sits, because of the defense, the Broncos, because of Patrick Surtain and the other quarterback there, starting anyone of the passing offense is going to be a risk. So Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis, obviously sit Elijah Moore, he's not going to be playing. That's something that you need to be wary of. This Broncos defense are not a joke. They are definitely top 3 against any passing offense this year. So again, temper your expectations. I'd most definitely sit all of them. And anyone I would start is Breece Hall. Again, given the situation with Russell Wilson, the passing offense for the Broncos is going to be severely limited. So anyone I consider starting is the Broncos, is Courtland Sutton. However, Gordon might be someone that they could possibly use, given the fact they have a backup quarterback, so they might lean on the run a little bit more. But the Jets are surprisingly good against the run. So this is going to be a titanic AFC tussle. So again, sit who you can for the Broncos apart from Melvin Gordon and Sutton. I don't get any comments with regards to Breece Hall, Jay.
Yeah, he was my player of the week, and yeah, he is going to absolutely feast. Do you know what? I'm a New York Giants fan, but I really, really like what the Jets are doing, and I'm rooting for Robert Saleh. I think he's an excellent coach. I mean, how good he is as a head coach, time will tell, but the players really play for him, and I just want to key in on Breece Hall because I think Saleh's stumbled on a prodigy, and I think he knows it, and the numbers show that the Jets offensive coordinator and offense knows it, because when you look at his attempts or his rushing attempts versus Baltimore, 6, Cleveland, that infamous Cleveland game where they came back. Now granted, they went down pretty early, they being the Jets, and Joe Flacco had to throw his way out of that game, so he got 7 rushing attempts. Cincinnati Bengals, 8 attempts. That was a blowout win for the Bengals, I believe. Pittsburgh. Now this is where it gets interesting. All right, check this out. So he went from 6, 7, and 8. You can't make this up. 6, 7, and 8 to 17 rushing attempts against Cleveland for 66 yards. Right? That doesn't look that great, does it? 17. He got about 15.8 points PPR. Okay, we say fine. Are they going to double down on it against Miami? You bet they are. 18 rushing attempts. He gets 27.7 PPR points. And this is the most dangerous part. he had 100 receiving yards, and he runs really beautiful routes. There was one particular route that he ran on the outside against the Dolphins, where he goes for a very long run for a big play, just about falls just before he gets to the end zone. Perfect example of how he could run. I think it was a wheel route actually. So he's very very crisp route runner. So you got that threat, right? So we say, okay, fine. The Green Bay Packers stopped that rush, that receiving threat in Breece Hall the following week, i.e. last week, where they just thumped the Packers at Lambeau, the infamous cheesehead game. So Breece Hall gets, was it 5 receiving yards? We say fine, calm. 116 yards rushing though, 20 attempts. So check this out. The last 3 games, he's had 17, 18 and 20 attempts. They are feeding this boy. And when you start to encroach on a 20, you're encroaching on the Christian McCaffrey level of touches. So look out for Breece Hall to get fed. So all you Breece Hall fantasy owners, you've got yourself a gold mine here. So we're just hoping that he stays fit because he is looking like more than 1,000 yard rushing this season, and he's looking like the Rookie of the Year, offensive Rookie of the Year candidate. So I am very excited about Breece Hall, and as per ESPN and as you alluded to, Chenna, Elijah Moore and his trade requests or cryptic tweets, as ESPN describes it, he's actually out for playing today, and that means then that, because I think Patrick Surtain was supposed to follow him, line up against him as per the formations. Patrick Surtain being the left cornerback and Elijah Moore being the right cornerback, right wide receiver. However, because the next best replacement for Elijah Moore doesn't compete with Corey Davis as far as name wise, I think from a size matchup also, I think Surtain matches well with Corey Davis around that 6'2", 6'3" mark. And I think that he will travel with Corey Davis because he becomes their ex-receiver, being a vet. So it's looking like he's actually going to be the guy that the Denver Broncos key in on. And it's going to be very interesting because what do you do for the Broncos? As you said, Uchenna, Russell Wilson can't play today. He's injured. So essentially, they haven't got much offensively. So they're going to have to yuck this game out, make it very ugly, make it very typical Broncos this season. Really yucky games where their defense wins the game off of just pure sacks, pressure, low scoring slugfest. But then what do you do with this Jets offense? Because if you stop the run of Breece Hall, you're going to basically leave yourself wide open with a lot of man coverage with Corey Davis. And these sorts of guys, we've seen him at Tennessee, they can burn you. Right? I know Zach Wilson likes to rush it a lot, but I mean, if he's getting guys one-on-one all game, Corey Davis should do well, we think. However, we've put him down as a sit because I think the Denver Broncos have the personnel to stop the pass, but then it goes against the instinct to stop the run, which is every football defensive coach's first priority. So everything points to Breece Hall having an absolute blinder and a feast of the game. So yeah, I would hate to be the Broncos right now. I'd hate to be the Broncos right now, but yeah, Breece Hall is my MVP or Player of the Week this week, and yeah, look to him to get something like 25 plus PPR points, easy peasy. So yeah, let's see if I'll be right this week.
Definitely. Now we go to one of the premier matches of the week, the Chiefs at 49ers. The Chiefs coming off a disappointing defeat to the Bills, looking to kind of bounce back away at the 49ers, which is not going to be no easy feat. So in terms of starts this week, you're going to start the obvious two. One of the best tight end wide receiver tandems in the league, Mahomes and Kelsey. I would definitely look to consider flexing Juju. He had a very good game the other day against the Bills. And the 49ers play zone 60% of the time defensively. So, and obviously Juju excels within the zone. So that's someone you could definitely flex. In terms of the 49ers, well, with the addition of Christian McCaffrey, which we'll be discussing later on, they have a plethora of offensive weapons that they could use. No doubt, they'll definitely be using him this week, and that will definitely start with Debo. Debo is the one that will definitely start this week against the Chiefs. Ayuk had a very good game against Atlanta. He's someone you can definitely plug and play, and no doubt in the flex. Jeff Wilson, again, temper your expectations because of the addition of McCaffrey. So again, he's someone you could definitely plug and play. The Chiefs are 28th against the run. That's someone you could definitely put in, but again, temper your expectations. Kittle, I think he should have a good game if he's not blocking. However, the main guy who I think this week, the coach mentioned that he would definitely have red zone opportunities, and expect the 49ers to have a lot of red zone opportunities against the Chiefs defense. Christian McCaffrey, start him with impunity. He's someone that you can definitely start, and I think he could have a top 5 week this week with a couple of touchdowns. So that's someone you could definitely start. In terms of sits, Mikael Holman is someone you definitely get to sit. The 49ers are pretty good against wide receivers this year, especially when they go X wide receivers. So that's someone that you can definitely sit. Unfortunately, you're going to sit CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's someone who's had a couple of good, decent weeks. However, I expect the 49ers to put a stop to the run, meaning that the Chiefs will have to pass, and I think the passing offense will go through Kelsey and Juju for the most part. With a slight dose of MVS. So I think that would mean that the run will probably be nullified, and I fully expect CH to kind of not have a good game, so definitely sit him. In terms of the 49ers, I think you could start for the most part, start everyone that's fantasy relevant. Even Jimmy, we've got him as a sit this week. However, if you're down a quarterback, he's someone that is definitely an option, very much like Matt Ryan. The Chiefs actually give up the third most quarterbacks this season, so that's someone you could possibly plug and play. However, given the yak opportunity for yards after catch, know about that. Given the opportunity for the likes of Debo, the likes of Kittle, the likes of Christian McCaffrey, that would cap the volume or the points for Jimmy G simply because of that. So take that consideration. However, we've got him as a sit. There are better options out there. However, look at him if you need a quarterback. And if you have any thoughts about this Premier game, Che?
Yeah, we're going to deep dive a little bit more into how the 49ers are going to use Christian McCaffrey. But just get your popcorn out, because this is going to be one heck of an offense. We just hope that he stays fit. I mean, the 49ers have the personnel to keep McCaffrey in a committee, which sounds bad initially, but when you look at his injury history, it makes a lot of sense, and it will keep him fresh. And boy, oh boy, does Shanahan know that boy, know that kid. Well, he's not a kid anymore, but know that man, and know how to use this Swiss Army knife offense, because I can't wait to talk about it, to be honest. But I think the Chiefs, they give up a lot of passing yards as well, and I think that it's going to be amazing to see how Shanahan sets up this offense at the 49ers this week, especially looking at what he has now. I think, as you mentioned, Jenna, McCaffrey slides straight in. Jeff Wilson might not get as many touches, but scouting report is that McCaffrey initially will be used as a red zone target in a lot of red zone packages. However, I think he's going to be used a lot more, and I really, really do, because McCaffrey is just so versatile. We're going to talk about it. He's going to be used in the passing game. He's going to be used in the run game. He's going to be used to block a little bit, although I don't think he's going to block as much. I do see Kittle potentially needing to block a bit more to help Juszczyk out, particularly with the offensive line being a bit banged up. But let's see, because you can also use Debo as well. So you can imagine that McCaffrey's going to be used in a lot of screen passes, a lot of short routes, intermediate routes, and also, as mentioned, both in the passing and run game with regards to the red zone, albeit Wilson being used for the early downs as far as the north-south running in between the tackles. I don't think McCaffrey is going to be used in that way, but it's just going to be so fun watching him being used. I just hope he stays healthy, because I'm wishing him, all the best health for this season, because he's had 2 seasons where he started well, and unfortunately he's been hampered with injuries, and due to the wear and tear. And I just want a rejuvenation of his career as far as wins because of the amount of productivity he's had. It's just only fair that he gets the team which he's got now that can actually become a contender. Because he's just too good of a player, sadly, to go to waste. And we've seen too many running backs that have gone to waste, so to speak, because they've been on teams that haven't gone that far, like an Adrian Peterson. I mean, okay, the Vikings have gotten far in the past, but they've never been a real threat deep in the playoffs because they didn't have any other options. Whereas now, you've got a 49ers option offense, which is going to be a Swiss Army knife offense, which we'll be discussing later on. So yeah, truly excited about this game.
Yeah, most definitely get your popcorn out because it should be a very, very good game. Now we go to the Seahawks and the Chargers. It should be quite a good game actually. Seahawks have actually surprised me this year. They've managed to kind of get themselves a winning record and they've done really well considering what was against them last year. This week in terms of starts, you're going to start Geno Smith, who surprisingly did very, very well. You're going to start the two wide receivers in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett needs to be kind of looked at. He is questionable, so definitely will likely be a game time decision. So definitely look out for that. But you start him if he's available. And the running back, the rookie running back, Kenneth Walker III. He's someone you could definitely start. He's someone who's had a very good couple of games since, unfortunately, Penny was placed on IR. So he's someone that looks like he's going to be the heir to the throne of the wide receiver of the running back one room of the Seahawks. So there's someone you could definitely start. In terms of the Chargers, it's going to be Austin Ekeler. He's the number one running back this week going into week 7 with the most points. So he's going to be someone that could possibly feast on this Seahawks defense. Seahawks give quite a bit to the run, so that's someone you could definitely start. Herbert, you're going to start. Mike Williams, you're going to start. And in the flex, you're going to be looking at Everett. He's someone you can definitely plug and play. The Seahawks give up the 25th most to the Titans. So again, that's someone you can definitely plug and play. With regards to Keenan Allen, now what we do know is that last night he was questionable with a view to possibly playing. However, they did mention, I think Adam Schefter for ESPN mentioned it would be a true game time decision. So because it's a later game, you do have the option of playing somebody earlier. However, if you are desperate and you need someone with production, he has the most upside of anyone that's this week who is questionable. So look out for it. Definitely look up injury reports. But if he's available, I would start him. If he's not available, another decent league could be DeAndre Carter. He's someone that did well in the past. So Josh Palmer's currently in IR as well. The next man up would be DeAndre Carter. So definitely start him if you can't start. If Allen doesn't go this week, so have a look at that. In terms of the sits, as we mentioned earlier on, Donald Palmer is someone that is going to be a sit because he's just gone IR. So that's someone you can't start this week. In terms of the Seahawks sits, unfortunately, Will Disley and Noah Fant are going to be sits this week. Both have had so-so season so far. Managed to find the end zone on 2 occasions for each of them. So again, that's people that this week, unfortunately, you're going to sit. The Chargers are pretty good against tight ends. So that's someone you're going to sit. I think in this offense, you're going to see a heavy dose of Kenneth Walker this week. So in terms of the passing, I think it'll be streamlined to just the 2 wide receivers. So I don't think it's going to be enough volume for either Disley or Noah to make sense for fantasy value. So that's one of those 2 that you can definitely sit this week. Now we go to the primetime games, late games for this week, and we go to the Steelers at the Dolphins. The Steelers coming off a quite good win actually against the Bucks. No one expected that, and I think this week is going to be quite a tough proposition. However, in terms of starts, you're going to start both Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris. Those are 2 that you're going to start. And in terms of volume, for Deontay Johnson, he gets at least 8 targets a game. That's someone you could definitely plug and play in. Pickens and Claypool, interesting propositions, uber talented. However, would temper expectations simply because of volume. The Dolphins are pretty good in terms of cornerback, and I fully expect Pickens to get a heavy dose of Xavier Howard. So definitely look into that. However, both have the talent to do well for the most part. So they're going to be in the flex. So consider that. But if you're desperate, definitely start them. In terms of the Dolphins, Tua looks like he's going to come back from his concussion. We wish him all the best in that game. It's going to be Tyreek Hill you're going to start as well, Jalen Waddle and Mostert, who should have a very good game against the Steelers, who give up the sixth most against running backs. In terms of sits, although Pat Freiermuth is clear concussion protocol, he's someone that you can sit this week simply because the Dolphins are pretty good against tight ends. Pickett as well. I don't know whether he's going to play, given he had the concussion last week and the new concussion protocol, given what happened to Tua is that for the most part, if you can have a concussion this week, you're likely to play next week. So it could be a game time decision, but I don't expect him to play personally. If that's the case, it looks like we're going to have a heavy dose of Trubisky. So if that's the case, then that obviously brings down the passing offense for the Steelers. But again, if you're desperate, definitely start them. But Pickett this week, definitely is a sit. In terms of the Dolphins, quite an interesting one actually. Usually you probably start Gesicki as the main part of the offense. However, in recent weeks, there's been reports whereby he could possibly be in the trade block before the 1st of November's deadline. So I would definitely look into that, given that fact, and I'd probably sit him until everything's been sorted out. And it might be a sit up until the 1st of November, simply because his future is going to be up in the air. The offense coordinator might not want to use him so much. So that's someone that you definitely need to consider look at. And there are better tight end options out there. So again, consider that. Do you get any thoughts on that, Jay?
Yeah, I think that I'm glad to see Tua back. By the way, just for his sake, I hope that he's protected well, and I don't want to see any more concussions for him. And I'm just glad Tua's back. I just hope he's healthy for his sake, and I hope he hasn't been rushed back. I know as a player he's going to want to play. He's going to want to rush back on the field. I mean, there was talks of him never playing again or never playing this season again. Due to what happened earlier this season, both at the Bills and at the Bengals. But I'm just happy to see Tua back. I think the Gesicki stuff is very, very interesting because I can't see why they trade him other than the fact that they wanted to get rid of him before he starts to demand more money. Because he's been doing a lot of blocking this season with the new offense under Mike McDaniel. But it'd be interesting to see what the Dolphins see that they need to get for him. I mean, what do you think? What do you think that they potentially want to get in return for Mike Gesicki?
I mean, given the haul that CMC got, I don't think they're going to get anywhere near that. But given this draft is pretty good, and given his age, there are only going to be a few teams that could possibly really want him. I mean, you could possibly get maybe a 4th or 5th round. I don't see you getting anywhere near any picks in the top 3. Maybe a 4th. Maybe a 5th, maybe a 6th. I think we're talking maybe two picks, if that. But I don't expect it to be a big haul. He is someone that, again, he is an aging kind of tight end, so he's athletic, no doubt. And there'll be a few teams that'll be in for him, but I don't think Miami can expect a big haul. So I think it's someone that, again, in the right situation, he could be very fantasy relevant. I mean, off the rip, if the Ravens were looking to kind of improve their passing offense, they could possibly add him as well as what they have in the tight end room already. So again, that could be a possible destination. I think if that's the case, then that he could be more fantasy relevant there. I mean, just off the rip, I can't think of any other team that would probably get to use him.
So you don't think that there would be a direct swap for a player, like a player trade? You think it's going to be more about draft picks?
Yeah, it's going to be more picks. That kind of situation rarely happens in the NFL. I think it's more about picks. And given how good the draft could potentially be this year, teams are going to be looking to slot up picks, stack up picks. Sorry. So I think if you look at the Carolina Panthers, they were able to kind of get the haul that they got. I think we'll mention that later on. That they got for CMC, and they were happy to take it because ultimately they now have from 4 picks to 16 picks.
Wow.
Again, yeah, exactly. So that's something that they're going to be happy about. I think most teams will look for picks rather than players in the very rare aspects. So that's why the situation where when CMC did go, no other player went the other way, like a Jeff Wilson, because ultimately the team acquiring that player will still have to pick up his money. So I think most teams would rather have the picks rather than the money. So yeah, but I genuinely believe that if a player, if the Miami Dolphins do get rid of Gesicki, it will be for picks. Multiple picks, I don't believe so. But again, it will be a pick. It will there. So interesting to see what happens with him and what happens moving forward.
Definitely.
Now we get to the Bears at Patriots. I think off air, I think you described this as a bloodbath for the field, the Bears. So this should be an interesting game. I fully expect this to be a defensive shutdown, and that's why we put the Patriots DST as the MVP this week. I think that they should potentially get at least 16 to 17 points. I fully expect them to sack the Fields a number of times, given that the Bears O-line is not very good whatsoever. In terms of starts, Ramondre Stevenson is going to be an absolute smash play this week. He had a very good game, 2 touchdowns last week against Cleveland Browns. The Bears are pretty good, pretty wasteful on the ground as well. They're 29th against the run, so that's someone you could definitely start. In the flex, Damian Harris coming back from an injury. He was a full participant this week. He may cut into Stevenson's workload. However, I fully expect Stevenson to have a good game as a better back. Damian Harris is someone you could possibly put in. Jacoby Myers, he's someone that in PPR especially, and very solid floor, 10 points as a floor, and a potential upside of at least 25. He's someone that he's going to have a very good game. He likely plays in the slot for the Patriots, and on the other side, his compatriot who will be marking him in the slot. The Bears usually give up at least 12.75 points to slot wide receivers. So ultimately, he will have a good game. So I fully expect him to someone you can start, someone you could plug in with confidence, and I fully expect him to have a good game. In terms of the Bears, it gets quite. It's pretty good in terms of streamlined offensive fantasy and who to sit and who to start. Mooney will start. Montgomery will start too because of volume, and that's it. Montgomery is a flex option, but he'll get most of the volume, so he's definitely going to start. In terms of sit Fields, sit Komet, and sit Herbert. Honestly, it's not going to be funny. Uncle Bill, as you guys call him, Bill Belichick, is going to find a way of shutting down Fields, and I don't expect it to have the passing game to be any kind of fruitful. So, if anyone's going to get any kind of volume passing work, it will be Mooney as they try to push the ball down the field. But Komet, I'm sorry, he's had a good season this year. Ultimately, people thought me being one of them, thought he'd have a good year. But he's not going to have a good year. I'm fully expecting to kind of bust in this matchup, especially. In terms of sits for the Patriots, Devontae Parker is someone you can sit. Jonnu Smith, Brian Hoyer, Hunter Henry, and Nelson Aguilar. I think in terms of quarterbacks, we don't know who's going to start. That's the thing. I mean, Bailey Zappi, it looks like he might get the nod this week. However, Matt Jones did start, was a full participant in practice on Friday. So, there is a likelihood that he may play. However, Bill Belichick is someone that likes to is very conservative in an approach to quarterback. So he might go with Bailey Zappi and give Mac Jones the week to kind of get even more healthy. So it might be a situation where the rookie, the third string, is again starting, and that brings down the passive offense. So I don't believe Parker, Aguilar, Hunter Henry will have enough volume to be fantasy relevant. Not to say they're not good players. However, in terms of fantasy, we're looking at volume. So I don't think either of them will have the volume required. That's why I believe, again, someone like a Ramondre, like a Harris will have the majority of the work in terms of the run. And if you are going to pass, it's going to be short to intermediate in the slot, and that will be Jacoby Myers. So ultimately, that's who I think will kind of flourish. But not saying they're not great players, but your Aguilar, your Devontae Parker, I think you can sit this week. Any thoughts on it, Trey?
Yeah, I mean, question for you, serious question. Do you think this week Justin Fields will see ghosts? And some Donald.
Honestly, they won't be friendly ghosts either, like Casper, and I fully expect him to absolutely see ghosts. You don't wish injury on anybody, but I think that's a fall in this week because he could get messy.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a patented Uncle Bill special where Justin Fields might not want to play anymore. You see what Uncle Bill did to Tony Gonzalez back in the day, what he did to Sam Darnold, what he did to what's that guy's name at the Lions? the quarterback for the Lions, he got absolutely plastered. Jared Goff. Yeah, if you're a shaky offense, you don't want to face Bill Belichick. If you're a young quarterback, you don't want to face Bill Belichick. His record is silly against young quarterbacks. The sort of looks he gives, the sort of schemes, they've never seen anything like it. They think they're seeing things until they start to see ghosts, because literally they just look around and then boom, sack here, strip fumble here. I think this defense is going to get anywhere between 15 to 19 points. I hope I'm wrong for the sake of Justin Fields, or for the sake of my fantasy lineup, because I've got the Patriots DST on my fantasy lineup. I hope that they whoop some. I hope they whoop some Bears behind, because it's long overdue. It's long overdue. But yeah, I could see a shutout personally. I could see a shutout.
Most definitely, yeah. I fully concur with that. And again, I just mentioned earlier on, the Pats DST should absolutely feast. I think the Cardinals this week managed to get 17 points. I fully expect the Pats DST to get similar, if not more. So definitely, if you got them, start them with impunity. And I think the Bears, any Bears fans, look away now, because it could get messy.
Yeah, definitely.